Good morning. Thank you for getting up so early to come and listen to the presentations this morning. I really hope that this is going to be an exciting session, a good session. We're having presentations from a really good representation of the profession in Asia. You'll notice all female, all young. It's fantastic, through that. So the title of this session is Eastern Perspectives, Common Ground, and through that, what this Congress has done for me to date is that it's shown us that we're beginning to enter a decade of landscape architecture. In this next decade, landscape architecture is going to become, I think, the most dominant of all the professions, certainly of all the design professions. The landscape architects have the skills, the knowledge, the belief to be able to actually manage what is a crisis in terms of loss of biodiversity and climate change. So far in the Congress, there's been some key issues which have been talked about, which apply not only in Asia but throughout the world. These areas of concern are climate change and the loss of biodiversity. They're about the ethics of practice and setting professional standards in practice. It's about the importance of community participation in design and how do we empower our communities to become part of the design process. It's about agriculture and food security. It's about health and well-being. These are the values of landscape architecture which we're seeing will become so important in this decade. And landscape architects are the profession that can lead this discussion. So as we enter the decade of landscape architecture, we also see the emergence of Asia globally. The influence of Asia, not only the big economies like China and India and Japan, but also the smaller emerging economies like Thailand and Malaysia, are having a profound effect on the balance of politics and power and economics in this world. This also gives a responsibility for those practicing in Asia to influence and to influence in a positive way the way our world is developing. I think this is what this session is about. It's how will the East respond? This is incredibly important to the future of the globe. So with that short introduction, I'd like to introduce Jane, the first of our speakers, who will talk a little bit about some of her work in Asia. Thank you.
I'm so glad to be here to have the report on behalf of our research group. Actually, this research is supported by the National Natural Science Foundation of China, and it is the first key subject in the field of landscape architecture. The subject is hosted by Tongji University and Xi'an University of Agriculture, Architecture and Technology, Zhejiang Agriculture and Forestry University participate the research. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Hexin Jin from Zhejiang Agriculture and Forestry University. I'm also the president of Chinese Landscape Architecture magazine and the executive vice editor-in-chief. So many people participate in this subject. Next one. Sorry. Yeah, 3 types of 9 landscape species of hot summer, cold winter, and cold area. Actually, from 2014 to 2018, the team completed the research on the basic CLA, design method, key technology integration, design guidelines, and evaluation index system of urban landscape architecture microclimate, centering on the coupling of research strategy. Unit 1, forming elements of system effectiveness. Unit 2, the structure of spatial elements. Unit 3, suitability, includes physical evaluation, physiological evaluation, psychological evaluation. It's a framework of the object. In the basic CLA, theoretically, experimental methods and the data analysis research were completed. A multi-level ternary method based on microclimate formation, regulation, and comfort was proposed. And the theoretical framework of dynamic thermal environment of landscape architecture was established, focusing on Shanghai, Xi'an, and Hangzhou as test and experimental sites. Hundreds of times of measurement of square, street, waterfront, residential area, and 9 kinds of landscape garden spaces have been completed. The design guidelines for microclimate adaptability of 8 livable landscape gardens in cold winter and hot summer areas are put forward. It's an overall research framework. Unit 1, function, physical identification, dynamic simulation, and physical adjustment of forming elements of system effectiveness. Microclimate observation, data analysis, and environmental simulation in landscape architecture. There are 4 methods of observation, 5 environment simulation methods, 7 data analysis methods, underlying surface, temperature adjustment of paving materials, temperature and humidity regulation of water, and plants includes tree shadow, cooling, trees core, and humidity habitat regulation. So it's a coupling of first, second, and third. And Unit 2, research on prototype structure, construction, and reconstruction of microclimate adaptive spatial elements and the spatial morphological structure of landscape architecture. So many different spaces about the square space, street space, waterfront space, residential space. And the linkage between spatial morphology and the spatial elements of landscape architecture and microclimate. And Unit 2, spatial elements and the spatial morphological structure of microclimate adaptability in landscape architecture. So, square, streets, and waterfront, residential area. Just 5 minutes? Yeah. So, Unit 3, physical evaluation, physiological evaluation, and the psychological evaluation of microclimate suitability of landscape architecture. Physical evaluation, physiological evaluation, and the psychological evaluation of microclimate suitability of landscape architecture. So, content, research Unit 1, forming elements of system effectiveness. Unit 2, spatial elements and the spatial morphological structure of microclimate adaptability in landscape architecture. And some evaluation about many signals, maybe heart rate signals and skin conductance signals. And 8 microclimate suitability design guidelines of landscape architecture. Guidelines for street space design in hot summer and cold winter area. Application, so the research has some applications in many projects. Practical application of microclimate in landscape architecture has opened up new fields and provides new basis for the implementation of landscape architecture planning, design, and construction. They changes the subjective perceptual planning and design based only on appearance form usually. And secondly, as the best way to adapt to the climate and the ecology of the environment, the planning and the design of microclimate adaptability of landscape architecture provides the premise and the background of landscape ecological construction and becomes the habitat foundation for improving and upgrading landscape architecture. And finally, it provides the basic approach from healthy and comfort to psychological aesthetics for human use. All the applications for different projects in different cities. Also the application in different projects. So the research goal of this project is to realize the design of microclimate adaptability of landscape architecture. The research innovation from constant thermal physicals to dynamic thermal physicals. Thank you.
Have a seat.
See here?
Yeah. Thanks so much for that presentation. This work is incredibly important in adding to the evidence base of our profession, and just a little snippet you showed us about how it can be, or how you're beginning to apply it in practice, is really important. So thanks very much for that presentation. The next speaker is Nian, and she's talking about community participation in rural revitalisation and showing that through a case study. So again, this is really one of the key themes that we've been talking about in landscape architecture. So thanks so much. Yeah, thank you.